Namaste, and welcome to this introductory lesson that accompanies the Foundations of Mantra Meditation course. So the purpose of this particular lesson is going to be learning about and a little bit of explanation of the opening invocations and the closing mantras. So these are particular kind of additional practices that we may want to make use of, and I highly recommend that you do, in addition to your regular mantra practice, or indeed any kind of spiritual practice that you do, whether it be an asana practice or silent meditation or anything like that. These opening invocations and closing mantras will serve to really increase the power and effectiveness of your practice, and are just generally good for the planet and the reality that we live in as a general rule. So these are particular invocations that I use in my own practice on a regular basis, and I found them to be particularly useful, and I want to let you know what they are and how they work. So the basic idea is that we have opening invocations. There are two sets. One set of opening invocations goes along with the Vedic tradition. So if you're doing a Vedic practice, any kind of mantras that come from the Vedic tradition, if you're doing sort of an asana practice, a hatha yoga practice, anything like that. And then there's another set of opening invocations that goes along with the Buddhist practice. So if you're doing any kind of a Buddhist meditation or other sort of practice, this is sort of the standard that goes along with that. The closing mantras then, which we'll talk about last, are universal, and they generally work for both traditions and are accepted as good and useful and beneficial for all beings, generally speaking, by both traditions that make use of Sanskrit mantra. So the purpose of the opening invocations first we'll talk about. The purpose of the opening invocations is going to be, first of all, to help to put you into the right space for doing your practice. So it becomes something where the more you do these invocations, the more connected to them you become. Then as you recite these invocations, it just shifts you into that space of spiritual practice. So you become more still inside, you become more calm, and generally speaking, the energy in your body rearranges itself as the invocations are recited to better facilitate whatever it is that your spiritual practice may be. So it's incredibly powerful in that sense. There are additional levels of this, however. The next one is really that not only does it change what's going on with you, but the vibrations of these invocations will go out into the space around you, and it will convert that space, that sonic energy of these invocations will convert that space into a sacred space, a temple, if you will, for your spiritual practice to be done in. And you will find that, in fact, these invocations can become the only thing that you need in order to create a perfect sacred space for your practice to occur in. You don't need to have a special place. You could be anywhere, right? And then as soon as you allow the vibration of these invocations to enter into the space, that suddenly becomes your temple in which you are practicing. So incredibly useful for that. The last thing I want to bring up about it is that these invocations are incredibly powerful for plugging you in to not only the global network of people who are using these invocations every day and are doing practices that are connected to them, right? Not only everybody that's doing it right now, right? But it's not connected to a linear time frame, right? So vibrating these energies will tend to connect you to the whole history, and perhaps even projecting into the future of these practices being used and these energies being vibrated all the time. And this is incredibly powerful. that connection into the wider community of people who are all doing practices similar to the ones which you are going to be doing if you're not already doing them. This is something that, really provides a tremendous support, tremendous foundation for your practice and for your life, for your reality. So obviously this is really tremendously beneficial, and it's why it's so important that I felt I wanted to do a whole separate lesson just about this. So we'll get on to the closing mantras in a little bit, because the purpose behind those is a little bit different. But this gives you a rough idea of these invocations and how they're going to work. So we have two traditions of Sanskrit mantra that we're working with in the Foundations of Mantra Meditation course. We've got the Vedic tradition and we've got the Buddhist tradition. There are different invocations that go with each one of these. And so we're gonna take a look at both of those. And depending on what kind of practice you're doing, if you're doing a Vedic mantra meditation, then I suggest you use the Vedic invocations. If you're doing a Buddhist mantra, then I suggest you use the Buddhist invocation. It's definitely a good way of paying respect to the particular tradition of which you are a part. And it also keeps the energy very much in harmony with the practice that you're actually doing. So let's go ahead and take a look first at the Vedic mantras. Okay, so here we have what I'm calling the opening shlokas for Vedic practice. So a shloka is like a short prayer. You can see here that each one of these three starts with an om, and then there's 4 lines. And that's really what defines a shloka. It's like a 4-line prayer it's in many ways is like a mantra. It's just a little bit, it's a fairly complex one, generally speaking. And it's also worth noting that while many mantras don't really lend themselves to like a sentence structure or being translated into English in a way that makes sense to us, shlokas usually do have that capacity. And so over on the right-hand side, I've got the English translation of each one of these, accompanying the Sanskrit, which is on the left. So you'll see right away that each one of these shlokas is connecting to one of the deities. The first one, of course, connecting to Ganesha, remover of obstacles, Lord of beginnings. It's always very appropriate to begin with any kind of practice that connects to Ganesha. The second one is a guru prayer, connecting to the guru energy or the teacher inside of you. Also very good, particularly for any kind of process that we may be doing during the Foundations of Mantra Meditation course. And then finally, Divine Mother is the third shloka. And Divine Mother, of course, the Shakti energy of which all things are made up. We connect with Divine Mother just for, so that we can actually have the power and the energy to accomplish whatever it is that we want to accomplish. So I learned these 3 shlokas from one of my teachers, and I use very much a similar kind of a structure to the way that she did it. So you'll notice as we're doing this during the class that I have this little bell here. And this is a very special bell. I've been using it for a long time. And I use it for these opening invocations and for the closing mantras as well. So bells are very powerful. In Sanskrit, the bell ganta. The bell is going to send off a particular kind of an energy vibration that creates connection by way of drawing attention to yourself, right? That's what a bell does. When a bell rings, your attention goes to whatever the source of that sound is. And so if we're ringing the bell and we're chanting the invocations, then each one of these deities is going to perk up and pay attention to us as we're chanting. And that's always a good thing. The more kind of energy you can add into whatever it is you're doing, the better it's going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and chant these 3 opening shlokas so that you can hear them. And I recommend that you continue to go over them a little bit here and there up until the class starts, so that when we dive into that first lesson, you'll be ready to go, and you'll be right with me on it. So here we go. Take a nice deep inhale. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sarva Mangala Mangalye Shive Sarvatha Sadhike Sharanye Trambake Gauri Narayani Namostute. So for me, there's an immediate difference. I feel it inside of me. I feel it in the room around me. And hopefully even just listening to me chant these invocations, you can start to get a sense of the difference. So the opening shlokas for the Vedic practice, the prayer to Ganesha, having a curved trunk, a large body, with the brilliance of a million suns, may all of my works be free of obstacles always. So calling upon Ganesha as the remover of obstacles to clear the path to move forward. The Guru prayer is actually a verse from a psalm called the Guru Gita. The Guru is Brahma, the Guru is Vishnu, the Guru is the Divine Lord Shiva. The Guru is truly the supreme reality, and therefore we give reverence to the Guru. Always remember that the Guru is that divine teacher who lives inside of your heart. And we're going to discuss the whole business of gurus in much greater detail during the class. Finally, Divine Mother Prayer. To the most auspicious of all auspiciousness, who grants accomplishment of all objectives, we take refuge in the beautiful one with three eyes. We give reverence to Narayani, one of Divine Mother's names, Narayani, in her transcendent form. Okay, so this is our opening invocations whenever we're doing a Vedic practice. And you can see here that within the Vedic tradition, our purpose here is to connect with these divine energies of the deities. When we move into Buddhist practice, you'll find that the opening invocation is something rather different than that. And that's why it really becomes important to make a distinction between the two. So in Buddhist practice, although we do work with divine beings or higher consciousness beings in the form of bodhisattvas, it's a little bit more about what's going on with you and your relationship to your own reality and how you're actually going to manage that for yourself. So in Buddhist practice, we have an invocation that's called the refuge vow. And while there are many different branches of Buddhism that have gone throughout the world now, and each one of them, as they've been assimilated into the culture of the particular nation that they exist in, each one has gained its own particular kind of character. But all the way around, this particular vow or prayer is considered to be, one of the roots of Buddhist practice. And is used pretty much throughout the world by everyone in one form or another. And it is used very much in this exact way, this opening invocation as a way of opening up the space and opening up your heart really to the Dharma. So let me go ahead and share that with you. So the refuge vow for Buddhist practice. So this one is more simple, certainly. You can see that most of the words are the same on it. And we do actually, it's traditional to chant this one 3 times. So what we'll do is we'll chant Om 3 times first, and then we'll chant the refuge vow itself 3 times. And let's go ahead and do that, and then I'll talk about what it is and how it works. So I'll begin with the bell again. Buddham sharanam gacchami, dharmam sharanam gacchami, sangam sharanam gacchami, Buddham sharanam gacchami, dharmam sharanam gacchami, sangam sharanam gacchami, Buddham sharanam gacchami, dharmam sharanam gacchami, sangam sharanam gacchami. Okay, very much of a similar kind of experience. It shifts the energy in the space, brings yourself into a more quiet, receptive energy state. So here, the refuge vow, I go for refuge to the possibility of enlightenment. I go for refuge to the teachings and practices. I go for refuge to the community of fellow seekers. So this is sort of a statement of, in Buddhism, what is considered to be the 3 necessary things that you have to have, right? In order to find your way to nirvana, in order to enter into enlightenment or unity consciousness. So, Buddham sharanam gacchami. Sharanam gacchami, I go for refuge, right? So Buddham referring to the Buddha, right? And in this case, I think what it really means is that, what the Buddha always said was, essentially, I became enlightened and I'm just an ordinary person like you. And what that means is that you can become enlightened as well, right? The Buddha is a living symbol of the idea that enlightenment is possible. So, Buddham sharanam gacchami, I go for refuge to the possibility of enlightenment. So, in order to succeed in Buddhist practice, you have to believe that enlightenment is a possibility. That's the basic thing. Dharmam sharanam gacchami, I go for refuge to the teachings and the practices. So, in Buddhism, all kinds of teachings and practices are provided for you to travel down your path towards enlightenment. And you should take refuge in them. When times are hard, practice. When times are hard, read the teachings or listen to the teachings. Sangam sharanam gacchami, I go for refuge to the community of fellow seekers. Oftentimes, the Sangha considered to be the most important of the aspects of Buddhist practice. Hang out with people that are doing what you do. It's hard to do it on your own. Um, a very few people may have the will to go, off into the wilderness and be by themselves and to practice that way. But most of us really need some company in order to do it. And so, I go for refuge to the community of fellow seekers. Find your Sangha, whomever that may be, and practice with them, be with them. Okay, so that's our opening. So as we move into the Foundations of Mantra Meditation course, we're going to open every one of the sessions with those invocations. Depending on which mantras we're going to actually practice that day, we'll do either the Vedic or the Buddhist invocations, or we may do both if we happen to be doing both practices during one day. And I'll talk more about mixing practices around like that as we get into it. Okay, so finally, just want to touch on this idea of the closing mantras. The closing mantras, I think, are, where opening invocations are sort of setting the space. The closing mantras at the end of your practice, there is something to be said for the idea of sort of closing the space after you're complete, right? Sort of closing the door to the temple as you're leaving to keep that space kind of pure and clean. And these closing mantras do that, but they have a much, much greater purpose than that. The idea behind these closing mantras is really one in which you are realizing that, the fact that it's your karma in this lifetime to be exposed to these practices and to have the opportunity to use them to further your own spiritual development is a huge blessing. There's just no other way to say it. We are incredibly lucky and blessed, really, to have this opportunity, and we really shouldn't waste it. So we should continue to do it. But in the nature of gratitude for the blessings that we receive, I think it's really appropriate to give back in some way. So as we are making use of these practices to build energy, to expand our consciousness, and to open our hearts, and to become ourselves in the truest sense of our nature, it makes sense to take some of that energy that we are building and offer it out to the universe to increase the levels of peace, happiness, harmony, all of the good things in life for everyone who's out there. And so you'll find that these particular mantras are often used at the end of spiritual practices for exactly that purpose. And you can visualize that. You can set an intention with these closing mantras to do that. That as you're chanting them, you're taking some piece of the energy that you've created. Not all of it, right? Because you're using that for your own development, and that is very, very important. But you're taking some of it, and you're giving that as a gift to the universe. And that piece of energy that you're creating, that piece of harmony, right? That piece of happiness, that piece of contentment, that piece of peace itself is going to go out into the world, and it may just kind of contribute to the general level of peace and happiness and contentment and harmony in the world, but it may also that energy may go out into the world, and it may find somebody that needs just a little bit of a push. And that energy may give that person that little bit of a push, right? And it's a wonderful karmic relationship in that way, because as you do it, as that energy moves out into the world, you have no idea who that energy is going to help. And the person that it helps will never know that it was you that helped them, right? And so it's done in a spirit of just pure, unconditional desire to give. And that's a beautiful thing, and there needs to be more of it. So generally speaking, this is a great mantra for helping to sort of develop that idea within yourself of giving unconditionally. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. So closing mantras, we'll use these for all traditions. I think they work equally well for Vedic and Buddhist. So we start with a nice long Om, and then we repeat this first one 3 times. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Repeat it 3 times. And then Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. We just do 1 time at the end. So, of course, the Oms we're using all the time, and I will discuss Om during the course in very great detail because it is such an important part of any kind of mantra or Sanskrit practice. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu is actually a line from a particular piece of Sanskrit from the Vedic tradition. It's called the Universal Prayer for Peace. It's actually a poem in 6 verses. And this is the last line of one of the verses. But this particular line has really, picked up a lot of energy and gotten a lot of use in modern times, just without even anybody knowing that there was a whole other poem connected to it. And so you'll hear this repeated, particularly in the Western yoga community. You'll hear this repeated all the time. And its message is very, very simple. May everyone everywhere be happy. Right? Just that. I oftentimes find that people are always wanting to add things to it in one way or another, and it's not even necessary, and tends to qualify things a little bit too much, right? Remember, we're trying to be unconditional here. May everyone everywhere be happy. That's all we want. We want them to be happy. Happy in a real sense, truly happy, right? Not sort of shallow surface happy, but happiness deep within them, deep within inside their hearts. That kind of true happiness. We wish that for all beings, right? Sending that out. And then Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Shanti means peace. And so that sound, Shanti, is just resonating the energy of peace out into the atmosphere of the earth. Lord knows, we certainly could use it. So I use the bell for this too, and sounds like this. Nice inhale. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So those are the closing mantras. I mean, such a simple thing, but so powerful. And I'll be repeating that, that idea, that concept throughout the course. Oftentimes in mantra meditation, and oftentimes in yoga generally, it's the simple things that are really the most powerful. It doesn't have to be some giant, crazy, complicated thing that takes years to learn. It's something that you could learn in 5 minutes, really, that might be the most powerful practice. The question is just whether or not you're going to stick with it. Right? And I think these opening invocations and the closing mantras are a practice that you should stick with, because the benefit you will gain from doing these simple practices is tremendous. All right, so now that we've done the closing mantras, we can be finished with this particular lesson. And thank you so much for tuning in to this. And I look forward to seeing you at the Foundations of Mantra Meditation course. Namaste.